So after an extended Christmas break, I'm back doing the book reviews, and my first book review of the year is Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah, the sequel to his critically acclaimed Dune, which was something of an epic. This one is substantially smaller, as you'll see, only about half the size, if that. And he's done something truly remarkable here, where with Dune, he wrote an epic. It was an adventure. It was a story of the good guys versus the bad guys, and the good guys won out and got everything they wanted and achieved all their goals. This is something of a continuation of that story. I think Frank Herbert wanted to posit what happens after the credits roll and the good guys have won and they've seized the day and the bad guys have been vanquished or killed. What happens after that? So he's done something truly remarkable, because where the first one was a sci-fi adventure, it was very much a traditional sci-fi story where the good guys ultimately win. This is a sci-fi tragedy. If Dune was the story of the rise of Emperor Paul Atreides and his empire, this is the story of the fall, because in this one, he is 12 years since the events of the first book, and basically everybody, or quite a few people in Paul's court, are conspiring to bring his downfall. His ascension to becoming a messiah for the Fremen people has caused a massive jihad, which has killed 61 billion people across the universe. And basically a number of people in his court, even his own princess consort, are conspiring against him, and they want to bring about his downfall. So that's the story, and this is about Paul still struggling, still coming to terms with the fact that he is an emperor and a messiah, and the fact that 61 billion people have died in his name, and how he wants to go about that, and how he wants to save the universe from the ultimate destruction that he will unleash upon it eventually. So that's the story. Like I said, it's a tragedy, so I'm pretty sure you can ascertain from that what happens by the end. But essentially, yeah, it's that. It's a message that it's not always happily ever after. Even though the good guys may win in the short term, in the long term, in the greater span of things, it may not always transpire that way. And I think that's the message that Frank Herbert was trying to get across. Now, like the first book, this is very difficult to get into. You have to invest quite heavily into it before you manage to get through it. There is so much subtext here. So it's not hard to read for bad reasons. Some books are hard to read because they're poorly written books, and it's just disinteresting or it's badly written. This is hard to read because it's so heavy, it's so involved. You have to really invest yourself into getting through this. So that was the one letdown for me. So much subtext here, so much monologue and inner monologue and dialogue here that action is pretty much all but eliminated from the actual book itself, and it's more about sending a message. It's more as if Frank Herbert has got an axe to grind here about religions and political structures, and how ultimately they will all fail, and ultimately people will suffer regardless of whether the good guy wins or the bad guy wins. And I think that's the ultimate message here, is doesn't matter whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, ultimately you're going to fall, you're going to come down, and things are going to go badly for you. And destiny is another major theme of the book, where he discusses ultimately Paul Atreides has a vision of his own downfall, and he spends the entirety of this book trying to avoid it, trying to bring about, much like he did in the first novel, where he had this vision of this jihad that would be undertaken in his name and would kill billions, and he tried to avoid it. Ultimately, it's ended up happening, and in this book, he has a vision of his downfall, and it ends up happening. So it's very much a tragedy. It's very much a question of destiny, and how you can never avoid your destiny, no matter what path you take, what choices you make. You can never avoid the inevitable. It's going to happen. So it's a very sort of Nietzschean book in many ways, because it's very pessimistic, and it's very critical of religious structures, political structures. There's so much here that I can't squeeze into a 5-minute video. Definitely is worth a read. Many people argue that it's inferior to Dune. I would argue not so. I would argue you definitely need to read the first book before you read this one. This one sort of serves as an extension to Dune. On a 100% rating scale, I'd give this book 80%. purely because the lack of action and the fact that it's so different to Dune really throws you off when you start reading it. So if you're going into this book expecting action and adventure, you're going to be disappointed. But overall, yeah, about 80 out of 100. Definitely give it up. It's definitely worth, pick it up, definitely worth a read if you've read the first one. It's Dune Messiah, book 2 in the Dune saga.